what are your community's needs too? Maybe you live in an area that's high homeless, and if you can find some intersection between what your community really needs and what you're really good at, you found a sweet spot that you should try there.
Today's guest is Travis Retzlaff, a lifelong Wisconsin resident, parent, and committed community volunteer. For the last 15 years, he's taken the long road towards public service, showing up locally, building credibility, and proving that steady participation can move the needle. If you're overwhelmed by the news cycle and looking for direction, his path offers a clear model. Get informed, get involved, and support others doing the work. You'll hear why the long, winding road to running for office matters, how consistent volunteering strengthens neighborhoods, and what living in a battleground state teaches you about civic engagement. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Molly. It's good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this conversation because of our first conversation, and I really appreciate and respect anybody who is willing to step up and do the dirty work of actually being in politics and running for office and everything that comes, along with it. So I gave a little bit of background about you, but let's talk about, where this all started for you, because I know it wasn't an overnight thing.
Yeah, it wasn't. And before I get into my thing, I like what you were trying to do with the show and the title and the whole concept of what do we do next? What can we do? Because a lot of people oftentimes wait and they're like, oh, maybe if we elect the right person, things will get done. And history shows it's not the case. It's people that have to do things. And there's so many things you could do. A little bit of guidance on what to do goes a long way. So thank you for starting this podcast and having me on.
Thank you.
I guess origin story-wise, I've covered some of this on my podcast in a little bit more detail, but the very shortest synopsis is I knew in my 20s that my goal, my purpose was to raise children because I felt like I was blessed with a good upbringing, good parents, good schools, all of that stuff, and the world needed more of that in it, and I think it's also just a natural thing. Some people want to have kids, and that was me. And when my kids were in grade school and middle school, type era, they were kind of well on their way, and what it meant to take care of them and their environment became suddenly about politics. This was 2011 during the debt ceiling crisis that the Republicans were trying to manufacture. And I had been politically aware and increasingly involved since the 2000 election between Al Gore and George Bush. And it was in 2011 that it dawned on me that there are people in positions of power that have ill will, that there really are not good people for the jobs. And there's also people that don't know what they're doing. And I myself had always thought politics is kind of a dirty thing. And I was looking at there's probably a lot of good people out there that don't get involved because of how politics is today. And I decided I would be the kind of person that would be willing, if nobody else, I would be willing to step up and do that sort of thing. So that was kind of what, it was an extension of wanting to take care of my kids and understanding that that also meant doing my part to take care of the culture and the environment that they grew up in.
And so you started doing volunteer work and really kind of educating, tell us a little bit about that time in the trenches, because I think that really matters, to like actually do the dirty work and do, or not dirty work, do the work and volunteer and spend that time and see what you're really up against. So walk us through that a little bit.
And part of the reason why it was a long road as we get started, and you'll find out here, is I wasn't born to a rich family. I wasn't born to lawyers or anyone that was involved in that sort of thing. So I didn't have the natural kind of background. I was in a marriage that was falling apart. I realized around that same time I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I had my first manic episode, which part of it was kind of somewhat of a spiritual awakening too, realizing some of these things and like needing to get involved. But I made this decision, like I want to do this. And I took stock of my own life and said, I have no capacity to be of use right now. For multiple reasons, I decided first, if I'm going to be a leader, I first have to learn how to lead myself. I need to learn how to manage bipolar. I had done well up to that point in my life. But I needed to know how to make sure that doesn't become an issue again. just physically, like I was out of shape. Career-wise, things weren't going good. My marriage I mentioned before. So some of the reason for the long winding road was proving it to myself. Am I the kind of person that's worthy of leading other people? Can I lead myself? I think another aspect of that was being exposed to Stephen Covey, I believe it is. He's got these principles of leadership, and he's got this concept that you start with what's in your control. You've got this very small circle, and that's you right in the middle. Can you control yourself? Can you lead yourself? And then after that, you don't just go from, okay, I got in shape, I can manage a new diagnosis I have, now I'm going to run for Senate. You don't, that's not how it works, unless you're born to money like Ron Johnson or someone like that, right? And that usually doesn't turn out well. So, well-versed in the concept of servant leadership and also this concept of what you can do locally, I decided I was going to volunteer anywhere and everywhere I could, and I knew I would learn things along the way. I knew I would gain credibility in my community, and I would make contacts that would be useful for me if I wanted to run for office. And it was a chance to prove to myself, if I want to be a politician, if I want to go up and tell people I want to represent you, I want to serve you, I need to make sure that, yes, I really do like serving people, whether it's like getting to be in the state legislature, or if it's going down to the local homeless shelter and making breakfast for homeless people at 5 o'clock in the morning. Serving people is serving people. And if you can prove to yourself and other people that you've got an appetite to do it on the small scale and you've got the right mindset to do it on the big scale, I think that's what makes a winning politician in my book.
Man, I respect the hell out of all that. I respect your vulnerability in sharing about your bipolar, and how you tackled it and got a handle on it, which is not easy to do. And then to take this long path of volunteering first and humbling yourself. I wish more humans thought that way about everything in life and not just running for office, and myself is included in that. I'm like, yeah. I could do that better. I have no business thinking I could do a lot of things better that I think I could do better, So if only all politicians took the time to really, put in that time and do that servant work and better themselves and read those books, it would be a better planet in general.
Yeah, and I don't think everyone has to take a 15-year journey to prepare themselves to do something like this. I know people that Alicia Saunders ran for Wisconsin Assembly last year, and she had no prior background. She's a vet, so she's got experience serving, and she's done a lot of good work in the community, and she just kind of jumped into it. Like, you got to try, and I think some of that comes back to the other component of the mindset, like as a politician, I don't like it when they don't tell you what their positions are on things. They get kind of weaselly and mealy-mouthed and talk a bunch of stuff. My campaign, when I run it, is going to be very much, these are my priorities. This is what I think. But the other part of it is admitting I don't know everything. I don't like politicians that tell you, I know everything. I'm the only one that can solve your problems. But they don't tell you what that is. They don't listen for feedback. I've got my perspective, but my first role is to learn. I learned a lot of this from 25 years of being in IT, a lot as a consultant. You go into someplace new. If you're going to be effective, you don't go in trying to impress people and show off what you know and like repeat the patterns that you've seen before. The first thing you need to do is understand the environment, right? What are the priorities of the company or the people who hired you? And if you're a politician, what are the priorities of the people you're representing? So I'm not going to stand there on the campaign trail and promise I know everything. I'm going to be honest about who I am, what I'm about. But a big part of that is I am also here to learn what's important to people and what the options are, and kind of collaborate and not come in and pretend to know it all.
And so, speaking of which, what office are you running for and exactly where? Because I don't think we've mentioned that yet.
Yeah, Wisconsin Assembly District 5. So I live in northeast Wisconsin. It's about a half hour south of Green Bay in the Fox Cities, specifically Kaukauna. The district is partially kind of urban in the Fox Cities, like Little Chute and Kaukauna, and then there's some smaller towns and a lot of rural Outagamie County. It goes up into the Oneida Reservation and Seymour and Freedom, and places like that. So it's a diverse community, but I think in the end, a lot of the issues are kind of the same, at least the ones that I'm going to focus on in my campaign. And the rest of them, we're all neighbors in the end, right? All of these people, whether you're living on a farm in the middle of Outagamie County or in the heart of Kaukauna, you're just like 20, 30 minutes away. Our lifestyles may be different in some ways, but most of our concerns are going to be the same, and we're all going to do better if we all do better.
Let's talk about that, because I know you're really focused on local and so what does credibility look like in the neighborhood level and, in that local level, and why is that so important to you?
Well, okay, so it's important. It's the advantage of running for a local office is you really know what it's like for people in your district. You know what their community is like. You've interacted with them. You've seen the other organizations that make up a community in a society, and you see how they're run. One of the first things I did as a volunteer, I was on the governance council for a charter school, and it wasn't like a charter school like independent. It's what they call an instrumentality, where it's run by the school district. They pay the teachers, they take care of the bills. It's in a schoolhouse that is the same as a regular public school. Parents have choice whether they go in there or not. And that's like where I learned about Robert's Rules of Orders. I learned about how that's structured. And education is a very important issue within Wisconsin. And how do we fund education? And how does this work with all the new voucher schools? And where's our money going? Where's the visibility? Like, why are our property taxes going up so much because the state's not funding things? It's credibility with being able to speak to the issues in the community as much as it is credibility with the people of the community. So you can earn that credibility with the people by understanding how education works in that environment, I think would be the best example.
And what national narratives do you think are missed about what moves people in these Wisconsin communities?
I think a fundamental one, I look at especially presidential elections, and I think the last two elections I look at, they're so close. And one of the things that tips the scales is people are just deeply distrustful and disliking government. So who the man is defined by who's been the man for the last 4 years. And that can be spun into a fear-based narrative, and fear moves people to vote, right? And it's about getting people out to vote. Only 2/3 of the voting population votes on average, right? And 1/3 votes Republican, 1/3 votes Democrat. The other third don't care. So it's about getting out the vote. And I think, unfortunately, that is a big part of it, and that swings things back and forth. And in my specific district, it's been fairly steady. Now, Wisconsin, since 2010, has had historically some of the worst gerrymandered maps this nation has ever seen. We recently, after over a decade of working, we now have a more progressive majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. They have ruled our state legislature maps unconstitutional. We drew new maps. And Democrats made a lot of progress in the Assembly and the Senate last year. I think they have the opportunity to gain the majority in the next few years. And then hopefully we'd see the kind of sea change that Republicans brought to Wisconsin in 2010, that Trump unfortunately has brought to the federal government this year. And even in Minnesota, the Democrats, when they gained control, they were able to make quite a few changes. So that's part of the reason why I decided to run now. In terms of speaking to that whole issue of people distrusting their government and working in a district that even after the maps have been fixed, it's still 60% Republican and 40% Democrat reliably. For the last 15 years, I've got an uphill battle. And I think one of my core issues is just government reform in general. We've got issues across the board we're not making progress on. If we can't fix the way we address governance and politics, we're not going to be able to make lasting good change in any of these other things. So I've got three main things that I'm really interested in within that main topic or priority. One of them is fair maps. the group in Wisconsin, the Fair Maps Coalition, that helped overturn fair maps by working at the local and county levels to pass ordinances, is now turned its sights on 2030 and making sure that no matter who has a majority in the state house, that we have fair maps coalitions that are not drawn in a partisan way. So that's number one. Number two, Wisconsin, the only referendums that can get on the ballot are put there by the legislature. These people are already elected. They've got ways to do things. They don't need that power. The people need that power. I would like to see citizen-led referendums, much like they have in California. California, that's how they got their independent maps, was a citizen-led initiative like that. So I think we've got the tools and the capability to approach more of what I call like true democracy, or citizens being able to say, my politicians don't run the whole show. If I can't compete to buy my politicians like the rich people, I can still get laws passed without my politicians. So that's the second one. And the third one, there's a platform called V Taiwan that I'd encourage people to check out. And I'd like to see V Wisconsin. And what it is imagine it's kind of, the short way to talk about it is, let's imagine there's a marketplace that says these are the priorities that we think are important as people, and groups of citizens and engineers and people like that can kind of document what it is and have this digital forum for deciding these are issues we think are priority, this is how we should address them. And then it's easier for people to coordinate and go to their legislatures and say, we want this done. And you get around this whole concept of we've got to get enough Republicans on board or enough Democrats on board, and we got to play this political game to pass policy. And it's not going to work for everything, but I think it can approach some of these problems and add more democracy into our democratic republic.
So let's talk about small wins, and local small wins, and how they matter more than they look. Like, how do you decide where to plug in? Mutual aid, school board meetings, election work, civic groups, because all these things really matter. So how do you know where to invest your time?
Yeah, good question. That's a good question. So some of that is, it depends on who you are and how much time you have. When I first started, I'll use my story as an example. A lot of the things I got involved in for the first 5 to 10 years doing this were started with my kids, right? They go to play flag football at the YMCA. I'm going to volunteer there. Oh, this is the charter school they're going to. I'm going to volunteer there on the governance council. So it starts by things you already have a personal interest in and you feel strongly about, because then you're going to be more dedicated about it. You're going to be excited to put yourself into it. So start with what matters to you. The last 8 years, I started to get involved in volunteering with the Democratic Party of Outagamie County, and they've got these, they call them these neighborhood OATs, Outagamie Action Teams. It was something that stemmed from Obama's Organizing for America. They got trained on how to do like neighborhood parties and stuff like that, and it extended into when it is election season, we focus more on the political organizing, knocking on doors, making phone calls, pop-up parades, things like that. When the political season is over, we take a breath, and then we pivot more towards movement or social organizing. So we've done forums where we talk about the Medicaid changes, what's going to happen if everything gets cut. We do fundraisers for food banks, fundraisers to pay off school children lunch debt, things of that nature. And each little group, again, decides when it's this movement organizing what they want to do. So even in that kind of structured scenario, a lot of it really is going to be, there's so much need out there, so many people that could help. If you're going to do your best work, probably best to focus on things that speak to you.
That makes a lot of sense. What does measuring progress look like, right? Beyond elections, right? What does that look like? Helping people, building relationships, systems improved. Because I think sometimes we get focused on like the big ticket items, right? And we forget that sometimes it's these small actions, that really pave the way or lay the foundation for a bigger change.
Yeah. And I think you want to start at the most personal level. What does success look like? What does progress look like? Or what is hey, this is worthwhile investment? I think on some level, it starts with yourself. How do you feel about the connections you're making when you're doing this work? Because you're not doing this work alone. And one thing that I think is so missing in society right now is connection to other people. And people feel so isolated. And it was a way for me to get away from the political news and say, hey, I read the headline. I read the first chapter. I'm already pissed off. There's no advantage to reading anymore. I'm going to take that energy I have and I'm going to go call my buddy that also does organizing and work. And we're going to talk about what concrete steps we can do to make things better. And in that process, you're building a connection and it's helping you. And it's helping each other. And then you're able to go out into society and do better work. And then it just grows from there. Then you're doing that movement organizing and you're delivering the food to the little free pantry at the library and you can see the librarians there and you're there as a citizen checking out books and you can see somebody like getting food from the little free library and you can start to see that there's real impact in, I mean, obviously like the movement organizing, it's good to build those relationships with other groups that are doing organizing, and then you can maybe lean on them a little bit when it's time to do political organizing. You're doing the political organizing because you believe in their causes, right? I'm not doing political organizing because I like donkeys or I dislike elephants or any politicians in particular. It's the causes they represent align more with mine. So helping those causes is good, and helping people is good, but it starts with yourself. You're hopefully, again, working with like-minded people, because it's something that matters to you, you're going to feel better personally, and it really starts there, and you'll see it grow.
I mean, I can attest to that because I was feeling very hopeless when I started this podcast, and it's a small thing, and I get to connect with people like you and have these conversations and feel hopeful that, you know, and maybe share a little bit of that hopefulness with whoever's listening, you know, because it's better than just doom scrolling and getting mad on the internet, right? Like, it's the only thing I can, you know, do to kind of quell this anxiety that I'm having towards it all. It's like, well, what do I have? I have a media company. I have a microphone. I have a platform. I'm somewhat decent at asking questions. Let me open that up and try to help some people that have a better idea of where to head than I do, right? Because, you know, yep. I don't have the answers, right? That's why I've never, you know, seriously ran for office. So
yeah, and nobody does it alone. Like
right.
It takes all of these actions collectively to make a difference. So like it's all these little things and it feels good, and then we can look at the results from election to election, and our county is steadily moving blue. The last two elections for Supreme Court were some of the first times a statewide race in Outagamie County has been Democrat in a long time. Like, I don't even know if Obama won Outagamie County. Now, there is some advantage I think we're getting in terms of demographics here, but we can see where that works in that concept of these neighborhood action teams. And we work within our direct communities, and we've now expanded our canvassing into these new communities where we have teams, and we're doing that kind of meeting on a monthly basis. These teams meet. It pulls those strong volunteers together even closer.
For sure.
And then there's like this shared accountability.
Right.
Between
right.
people, and it kind of snowballs, and then we have seen it even within election results at the larger level.
If somebody had 2 hours a week to donate, you know, to give towards helping their community, their, you know, local guys like you, or anything, what's the highest impact thing they can do to start?
The highest impact thing they can do to start, the cheap answer is you got to take stock of where you're at. And if you don't have a lot of capacity to help, the best thing you can do is understand you're a part of the community and help yourself, lead yourself, and focus on building the capacity to help others. And trying different things out. I think also in that same vein, maybe it's a cop-out to not give direct advice, but I've done a lot of different things. I didn't say I'm going to do this, I'm going to stick with it. I tried everything. I treated it as a buffet. I learned skills. I moved on and was able to use those skills at other places. So I think that's advice I'd give to new volunteers. And again, in terms of also taking stock of what your skills and interests are, what are your community's needs too? Maybe you live in an area that's high homeless, and if you can find some intersection between what your community really needs and what you're really good at, you found a sweet spot that you should try there. Or maybe it's a skill you want to learn. If you want to be better with people, it's not like maybe not going to the local Feeding America warehouse and repackaging food. Maybe it is going to the homeless shelter and cooking food for people in the morning and greeting people or saying hi to people.
I love that. I mean, I really do.
Yeah, it's not concrete direct advice, but it's
No.
advice on how to find what's right for you.
No, I think that's great because there is no one size fits all. And I like what you say about it, treating it like a buffet. Like, you don't go to the buffet and think I'm going to like everything on here, but I'm going to try a little of this and a little of that. And I think that's better because we can be all or nothing as people. Like, I tried once, I didn't like it, never going back. Like, well, hold on. Maybe you just volunteered for the wrong thing. Or maybe, maybe it wasn't the right fit. But, like, that doesn't mean that all volunteering is off the table. Like, just keep at it. And so I like this idea of a buffet. It's a really good way. And then, like, it's like having jobs when you're a teenager, right? I worked at Jerry's Pizza. Worst job of my life. Never eat the meatballs. You know what I mean? Never eat the meatballs. But all those things gave me skills that, things that I liked. And I was a business manager for Toyota. I've done it all, you know what I mean? But all those skills got me to where I am today, and I don't regret any of it, but I don't want to do any of it again either. You know what I mean? There's no looking back. It's just looking forward.
Yeah, do yourself a favor. Look at it like it's a lifelong career, not like you're going to tech school. I'm going to volunteer for a couple of years and come out a different person and having changed the world. Nope, this is you're in, you're going to love it. Trust me.
All right, I got one more question for you. For those who never want to run, they're like, absolutely not, I'm not doing that. What roles are indispensable behind the scenes that they could consider or start inquiring about or learning about?
Talking to people. When from a political organizing perspective, there is nothing more powerful than knocking on doors. People don't answer their phones. If you get someone on the phone, you're not going to make much of a dent. Canvassing is widely misunderstood. There's a couple of months out of a political cycle where we're knocking on doors of people we don't know what they are. And we go and we don't try and sell people on Democrats. We're like, what is your issue? If you're going to vote, what makes you vote? And we're trying to just identify where people are at. And during the heart of political season, it's knocking on people that we're pretty darn sure they're Democrats already, reminding them to vote. So I never thought I wanted to do it. I didn't do it until 2016. Now I've done it so much, I love it. I'm going to love doing it for my own campaign. I love talking to people. It's cool. But there's other ways, if phone calls, postcards, text banking, even what we call relational organizing. We do a lot of that now where it's like, hey, you don't want to go talk to strangers, but will you talk to people you know? And
Start
will you
with
accept
your Rolodex. Right.
Yep, start with your Rolodex and who's in your contacts that you're not sure about, and it's more powerful that way too if you're getting these kinds of questions in this conversation from people you know. It's a lot more effective than strangers at the door. So I would check with your local party because there's also other odd, people will bring meals for people that go out canvassing. There's people that have to do training for people at canvassers, office workers. Get involved, again, back to that get involved locally. Contact your county party before your state party or the national party. Get to know people that you can meet face to face and make a connection with and have more positive relationships with like-minded people.
I love that. I think, everybody can't be the main guy. I was in production for a long time. It takes a lot of people to pull off an event. It takes a lot of people to build a stage. It's not just pick up a microphone and start singing. It had to be brought in. The stage had to be built. All the wires had to be run, and every single one of those positions is just as important as the artist who's going to perform on stage. It's a symbiotic universe. And so, yeah, even if you don't like talking to people, even if that's not your jam, maybe you like to cook. You could cook for those people. You could drive them. You could pass. There's something that you could do in there, and I think that's really important because nobody's coming to save us, right? I think that's right. If you didn't know that before, you know that now, right? We're all just looking around waiting for somebody to stop the madness that is happening, right? We're like, wait, this isn't supposed to happen like this, right? Well, nobody's coming to save us. It's got to be us. So anything that you can contribute to the movement is going to make a difference in a positive way, much more so than just sitting at home stressing out.
Yeah, and not just for the larger effort, because it does take a bunch of people. Like the League of Women Voters has a new campaign they're pushing 8.5. If 8.5% of Americans stand up against policies that the League of Women Voters believes are threatening our Constitution, that's enough to make a difference. And it's not only like maybe we can make a difference there, it's also coming back to making a difference in your life. I can tell you from personal experience, when I had my manic episode, part of it, I was reading way too much of this horrible, anger-filled apocalypse catastrophe news that was getting me so agitated to the point where I didn't want to sleep. I had to do all this stuff. I got to do something, but first thing I have to do is take care of myself. And a lot of that was learning to disconnecting from the larger level news and figuring out how I could help locally with my county party and even in my community outside of politics, because I hate how much politics drives society today. It's really about making a difference at the local level, and you don't even need to get involved in politics to be able to do what politics should be doing for us, and that's making our communities a better place.
Well, I won't disagree with that. That's an excellent way to end this interview. I mean, I think you're very well-spoken. I think Wisconsin is lucky to have you. I'm excited to see, where you take this thing. For people that are listening, we're definitely going to target people in Wisconsin for this episode, so hopefully it'll reach them. But what is the message you would like to leave with people, whether they're in Wisconsin or if they're not in Wisconsin? How can people find you? How can people support you? What do they need to know?
Yeah, I've got a website that needs to be redone. It's not quite ready. I'm at a soft launch part of my campaign, but it's going to be at www.travisretzlaff.com. I'm establishing a YouTube channel, Fighting for the Fifth, because it's the 5th district. Nice. That's another good place to find me on Facebook, Instagram, the socials. I believe Travis for Humanity is a page I started a while ago with political memes, and I'm just going to have that be my site. So that's it. So if you are interested, feel free to look me up. I plan on doing a lot of videos on YouTube, probably kind of a podcast there of my whole campaign journey over the next year. I got a lot to share.
Nice. I think that's great. I watched a video that you put on your website, I believe, that kind of gives your background, and I thought that's great, and I wish more people would do that. It's nice to hear your voice and hear your story and learn more about you, and like on a deeper level, even if it's just a 5 or 6 minute video. I thought that was really smart, and I'm sure the people in your district and in your community will also appreciate getting to know you deeper than just sound bites or social media posts that maybe somebody else wrote for you, and I think that really matters. It's a great way to leverage the tools that we have now to move us into the future. Old school and new school kind of moving together, I think is how we really get it done.
That whole I don't know what the politicians are all about, where they're at the issues. That should be long behind us. If you're ready to be a politician and put yourself out there and be authentic, with the makeup of my district, I think that's my best shot, is to not try and play the safe game or how politics is typically done. I want to try and run a cleaner campaign, be authentic, and be open and available to talk to my constituents.
Hey, man, I love that. Almost makes me wish I lived in Wisconsin. Almost.
Yeah, we'd love to have you here, Molly. You got time.
Well, if I ever come back to the United States, I'll consider it for sure. Although cool. Cincinnati's been calling my name too, but that's a whole other conversation. So,
right on.
Travis, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really appreciate your energy and your commitment and your vulnerability and your hard work, and I'm sure that people in Wisconsin and your district appreciate it as well. And maybe somebody listening today thought to themselves, maybe I want to start my journey too, whether it's 15 years or 15 months. The best direction you can take is forward. So thank you.
And that's Wisconsin's motto. Thanks for bringing that up.
Oh,
Wisconsin. Forward is our motto. On Wisconsin.
That's amazing. I didn't even know that. Look at me. Yeah. Well, my dad always says to me, we got to stay in a moving forward program. He's a retired commander. Right. He's like, no, we're going to keep it going.
Well done.
I love it. Well, thank you again, Travis. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast today. Please consider sharing this with your network. If you know anybody in Wisconsin, please, of course, share this content with them. And think about volunteering. I think it's a really great idea. I ran for office one time. I was asked to be on this ballot, and I realized that I wasn't qualified, and I didn't win, luckily. But then I started volunteering for people that I did think were more qualified, and that made me feel a little better. I think we all need something to feel a little bit better about. So I hope this interview gave you guys some inspiration, some ideas, some direction. And until next time, we'll please be excellent to each other, and I'll see you on the next one.